quickie.
Are we recording?
You ask that every time, remember?
I need reading glasses. I can't see that little thing in the upper left corner. Um, how's your day? I haven't talked to you much.
My day's been good.
All right.
How's your day been? I haven't worked a lot today.
I tried to cram a lot of shit in today. And
You got your new bike.
I got a new mountain bike. I got my Father's Day present. It's not new. It's a demo bike, but it makes me smile real big.
Yay!
And I can probably pedal off a couple of pounds of that bad boy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Or just buff up, like just get harder. Whoa.
Getting on the mountain bike isn't what makes me harder, honey. That said, today's
that part of you.
Today's podcast is we're going to do all of our listeners a really, really big favor, or we're going to piss them off, or they're going to be indifferent. It's one of those three. One of those three. It's going to be a relatively short podcast. So if you were counting on this podcast to get you through your commute, you're going to be one of the pissed off ones. If you're trying to listen to it real quick before you go do something else, you're going to be one of the happy ones. And then there's a big chunk that are not really going to give two shits.
I think it's a good topic, though. And you know what? It sort of prompted me to think about it, and at the very beginning. You know Cody Sanchez?
Do
Do you think my mic's not on?
I don't think your mic's on.
How about now?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it wasn't on.
I bet they could still hear me.
Yeah, if you didn't hear Sam, she didn't really say a whole lot prior to this, other than she thought that I could get hard riding a mountain bike, which that's what I was talking about. Anyway, so go on about Cody Sanchez.
Cody Sanchez was giving us. By the way, she's how do you describe her? She's a badass. She's a badass in the she specializes in investments. Basically, she's done a whole bunch of investments, and she's young, and now she works for a company called the Entourage Effect, which is
they're kind of VC company, right?
Yeah, they're kind of like VC, but you can, yeah, exactly. But you can invest with her, and then their company does all the due diligence and finds these great deals, and then when there's equity events, you get paid. But anyway, she was giving a talk. Well, and she's she's very well known in the Latino community, as well as being a young woman, because she's really like successful and smart. And anyway, she's awesome. So she was speaking. Are you okay?
Yeah, I was just trying to take a deep breath without having you think that I was sighing, but you just did anyway. So
anyway, during that speech, one of the things that she talked about was making your own Bible. And I love that idea, finding all the things that inspire you personally, collecting all of the quotes and the pictures and the ideas and writing your own stuff about what lights you up. And then as we started talking about this topic, I thought about that and how what we're talking about today is kind of like that, but for your relationship. It's kind of like you write your own relationship Bible.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Well, and also kind of a rule book.
Rules sound stringent.
Okay,
it's
guidelines.
More of it's more about writing down what your key core values are and what you want to get out of the relationship. So there should be enough
different opinion on that.
Well, there should be enough flexibility in what you write down that there isn't like a strict rule. You broke a rule, then somebody ends up becoming like the rule police.
Well, and this isn't even an activity that
for example,
we haven't even engaged in this activity. Like we're sort of talking about it at a high level because we haven't actually done it.
But this is the podcast where we tell everybody that we're going to do it, and then we're going to do it, and then we're going to tell you how it went. But here's a good example. We both agree, absolutely, one of our core values is that we want to raise healthy, happy, well-adjusted kids, right?
Yes.
Even though we have no control over a couple of those.
We have no control over any of them.
Well, the healthy part. I mean, if we have some control, can
Well-
like feed them vegetables. We don't have any control anymore.
We
But
don't have any control if they eat them.
yeah,
I mean, that's the goal. That is definitely something that you and I focused and still focus on. I
right.
mean, they're grown
So
up now, but we still focus on we will do everything in our power to support our kids on their path to being happy, healthy people.
right. So if one of our kids is running around, um, just elated in the backyard or something, that our kids aren't that small anymore. Let's just pretend our 27-year-old is running around super happy in the backyard.
I love that.
and then your tendency as a parent is sometimes to be like, hey, slow down, you could fall and hurt yourself. But they probably won't. So if you just focus, I mean, even though like you might say slow down, you might hurt yourself, I might completely disagree. Like they're happy right now and you're like, well, I want to keep them healthy. But it's kind of a minuscule, this is a shit example, I gotta come up with a better one. But you know what I'm saying, you've got a core value, and as long as they fit into that, or a relationship or whatever it is we're measuring fits into what that core value is, how you got there, and it shouldn't matter. Like you and I have completely different ways of doing certain things, and the end result's the same.
So, what kind of guidelines would you write in our Bible? Or what values? I mean, we talk about our core values are, we want to stay healthy, right?
Communication is one. And I'm learning, I'm 53 years old, and I'm finally learning that suppressed feelings are a bad thing. And even if, so for me, my suppressed feelings are, I don't know, probably go way back, when you're a little kid and your dad's like, oh, you're going to be fine, rub some dirt on it or something, you know what I mean? I don't think my dad ever said rub some dirt on it, but something like that. He talked about getting hit in the face with a baseball and jumping right back up and like standing in the batter's box. And that was kind of the measurement of what we
Manliness.
do. What we do. This is what I did when I was a kid, but you can do whatever you want. So I don't really feel like there was any kind of a harshness, to be manly or to be tough or any of that stuff, but it was just what I felt like I wanted to be. Or is it the, what do you call it? There's a stereotype in most of the places I grew up that's who you should be. So feeling and allowing your emotions to come out, I'm learning, is something that I didn't do a lot of. Plus I didn't have a lot of, my parents had,
You had zero.
Yeah, my parents had a couple of emotions. They had
Pissed off.
angry and not angry.
No, they have happy.
Yeah, they have happy. I mean, they laugh. Don't get me wrong. It's not, but
There's no sad. There's no.
yeah, I don't
There's
know that.
annoyed.
Well, my sister died, I saw my dad and mom cry, of course. But and it's not like it's okay to cry, but then it's like, suck it up. Now we need to be there for everybody else, or at least that's kind of what I learned. And there's nothing wrong with that either. I actually like that, but I think trying to be the man's man and trying to in a relationship, I think that it's not always the healthiest approach. So one of the things that I would think we ought to put in our Bible, or our, I don't like the word Bible, our manifesto, makes it sound
Little
crazier.
less preachy, little less.
A manifesto, those are super preachy, I think. Whatever we call it, our relationship manifesto sounds cooler though.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we put in there though is definitely to allow yourself to feel and share that with each other.
Oh, I like that. Do you think you do that?
I just fucking talked for like 10 minutes about how I don't do that, or haven't really figured it out yet, and
Oh,
I'm
got
learning
it.
that it's important.
Oh, got it.
That, I mean, I'm sorry, that was rude, but what
I'm okay.
I meant by all of that was that what's funny about it is that 5 years ago I never would have put that in there.
All right. So the way that we deal with our emotions and communication would be one guideline we would want to
Now,
consider.
communication gets its own freaking page, I think. Communication.
Communication.
We just write a whole page.
Which is really listen, 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 listen,
Yeah.
listen.
I mean, if
Try to be
if
kind.
you're feeling emotional and you allow yourself to show that, there shouldn't need to be a ton of communication going on, um, unless the other person just doesn't get it, and then you'll need to. But if I start crying, which I don't hardly ever do, you'll, you know, you're really good about that shit. You'll like rub my shoulder and just stand next to me and be there if I need you. And then if I need to talk about it, you know that I will. But otherwise, you don't ask, or you might ask, and then we just respect wherever the person is at that time.
Yeah.
Respect. That's another one. We got to put that in there. Respect of each other's feelings. Respect of each other's.
Bliss.
Yeah, just respect. Overall respect, but respecting each other's feelings is actually a really important one because um, a lot of times you're like, I'm feeling this way, and then I'll take it. In the past, I've taken it
Personally.
personally. Well, you shouldn't be feeling that way because I never said anything, and you're like, that's just the way I feel, and you can't diminish how I feel.
I do say that.
And then I tell you, well, you're wrong to feel that way, and that's not respectful. So,
That's true.
all right. So these are a few of the things that we're going to be putting into ours, and what we want to challenge. Why don't you give me one?
Well, I was also thinking, so the other reason that this came up is because I've encountered a number of couples or people who've been talking about their relationships who've experienced things that, and again, it's probably more related to the sex life than anything else, where their partners have done something or expressed something that is taboo maybe, um or just downright not accepted at all. Like if somebody, like, well, let's go back to the Cheetos, right? To Laura and Dawn.
No, Don Cheadle's isn't his name John?
Oh shit.
Don Cheadle's the actor.
Oh, my bad. Shit, now I feel like we should pause it because I don't want to get their names wrong.
Well, if we got their names wrong, Justin, chop this part out and pick it back up where Sam says, "Let's go with the Cheetles," and then just chop all this crap out. Otherwise, you got to at least chop out what I just said. Go, Sam.
So with the Cheetos
You said their name twice.
is a good example of something that happens in a marriage and it's not okay with somebody. I honestly don't believe that either one of them thought that was okay. But in some situations, that will happen, and it creates a different kind of conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where in their case, there was a lot of there were a lot of emotional things going on. Whereas think sometimes when people are having extramarital affairs, it's a very physical thing. And in some cases, after that happens, if both partners are open to it, it creates an opportunity. And I don't know if I'm saying that. I'm trying to be so careful about how I'm saying this, but
Well, I'm waiting for you to bring it all back around because we're talking about our manifestos.
yeah. So I guess when we enter it, this is what I want to say about this. When we enter into relationships with people, we have all of these built up expectations based on religion and society and culture and how we were raised about how a relationship is supposed to work. And then we hold that picture. But then when you get into a relationship, it doesn't have to work like that. I guess the beauty of creating your own manifesto is that the only people that ever need to know what's in your manifesto and what you agree to as a couple and what you decide is acceptable and not acceptable. Like where a hard stop, where there's a hard no, and where there's a gray area is with your partner. And you don't have to tell anybody else what those rules are. For example, we know a couple where, I think they both are somewhat bisexual and that they can decide whatever they want about their relationship. They can decide to stay together as a couple and explore their bisexuality. They could decide to explore their bisexuality together. There are so many answers to that question. Like how could this work if we got to imagine it ourselves? That I guess I'm trying to give permission to everybody who's listening to allow yourself and your partner to create your relationship however the fuck you want. It has nothing to do with anybody else. What anybody else says, what they do, what they tell you, what they don't tell you.
And definitely what they think. Who
Yeah,
gives
what
a
they
shit?
yeah. It's what other people think of you is none of your business.
It's totally, well, what other
It's
people
none of
think
your
of you.
fucking business. What
It's
other
none of
people
theirs
think of
either.
you is none of your business. And it's another, yeah. And I mean, again, we're just talking about judgment,
Some of us have parents or relatives or whatever that we might hide a side of ourselves from.
which is fine.
There's nothing wrong with that, and that's not necessarily what Sam's saying. Is you just come running out and you mount this manifesto on your wall and let grandma read it or something if you guys are swinging. But what
Well, I just don't think it's anybody. You
if
people.
you're trying to avoid judgment from a loved one, we get that. You got to navigate your relationships with your family. That's just a whole nother. That's probably. I think we've already done a podcast on that at least once, if not two. But
Well, I like it better. I don't like the way that I feel like you're molding this into something different than what I think I'm trying to say. Like I feel like you're trying to say, hiding what like a couple's hiding something. But if you go back to how Brene Brown and how she approaches the world, not everybody deserves to hear your story. Not everybody deserves to hear anything about you. Like people have to earn your trust before you decide to share whatever you want to share with them. You and I have no.
sometimes you trust people though, but you already know enough about how they think, and you've heard enough about things that they've said that you feel like there's going to be a big fat judgment coming, and so you don't have the conversation.
Yeah,
That's
but
all I'm
that's
saying.
trust, right? That's still, it doesn't, again, like you don't have to show everybody, you don't have to get naked in front of somebody. You could still be wearing your clothes.
That's
And as
fun though.
I'm just saying, I don't want there to, like, I feel like you're judging not telling everybody everything about yourself. And I'm saying, I think it's fine to not do that. And I'm not saying
I'm
don't be
talking
who
about
you are.
being like a turtle, and sometimes family's tough. That's all. Like there, and I think the reason I brought that up is we had a conversation in the last week about something exactly like this, where there's a member of a family who's, it seems really scared, like have those conversations, and we know the family pretty well, and we think there's 3 out of 4 of them that are going to handle it just fine, and maybe one where you just don't have that conversation.
Yeah. And I, again, what happens in your relationship, you and your partner decide what's private and what's not private.
Yep. Anyway,
But I
so
like this idea. But I guess the point I really wanted to come across was you get to make your own rules in your relationship. You don't have to abide by anyone else's rules if they don't apply to you and your situation and your partnership and your relationship with your significant other.
I think my head's tilted the same angle as yours.
They look like dogs, kind of those ones that look out the window. Like,
Anyway, no, that's beautiful, and you're correct. So
I want to know what
definitely
ours says.
when you sit down and start creating your own manifesto, and maybe you want to wait until you hear if Pat and Sam actually even did it, and then how it went for us, before you do your own. And I don't have I actually I do that. Wait until we come back with after we did ours, or if you want to jump right in, go for it. But
I think starting to have conversations about where you have expectations and whether or not they're appropriate is awesome.
yeah,
Like, do you
but
expect me to clean the house all the time?
if it's so, at the end of the day though, you start with your absolute core values, and then like cleaning the house all the time, um
Not one of your core
it
values.
should translate back to a core value that we both have, that we've agreed upon, and then we can have that conversation. But if it's It's like my expectations of you in this relationship is to put out the trash. It's like that's getting probably a little more granular than you need to get.
Don't judge.
I'm not
Maybe
judging.
somebody needs to get that granular. Maybe
Then
we
it's not a
do.
manifesto anymore. It's I don't know. I mean, to me,
You and I have very different ideas about what this topic means and where to go with it. I love that.
This topic
It's up
to
to your own
me
interpretation.
means you establish what your core values are as partners in a relationship, and then you build some guidelines around those core values.
And my idea of it is that you take a look at all of these expectations that you've built up in your mind about what a relationship is supposed to be and look like and act like, and dissect those and make sure that those make sense for you as a partnership.
Or if they even fit into the, or if your core values even give a shit about those expectations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right,
Be
then.
fun.
Cool. Well, as everybody can hear, we are absolutely 100% on the same page again.
As always, not so perfect. But I think we could still do a really cool manifesto based on both of our very unique and distant ideas about how this should go.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna put pictures in it.
Cool. Are we gonna share it? I'm gonna tell everybody what we wrote.
I guess we're gonna have to see what kind of kinky shit we put in there and then decide.
Kinky shit. This just made a left-hand turn. Hey,
no, I've been talking about sex this whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So you want to do a manifesto so you can put some kinky shit in there?
Maybe.
Oh shit.
We gotta go now.
See you guys.
Love to everybody and their families, and till next time. Ciao.
Bye-bye.